Hello, everyone. Good morning, afternoon, and evening to all of people are live or watching this stream potentially later. I am Priya Kushandafam, Microsoft MVP, MCT, and Community Leader in Microsoft Zero to Hero. We are very grateful going to have a first session of APAC series sessions that we're going to have during August and, of course, on the following months as well. So I'm just going through a couple of slides with you all before actually having Shehan on the stage. So give me a sec, I'll just bring the slides up. Awesome. So today we are diving into the power of the cloud native endpoint strategies. A critical piece, I'm assuming, is today's secure, scalable, and modern IT landscape. So from identity-driven access to zero-touch provisioning, this session will unpack how Microsoft Entra and also Microsoft Intune can transform endpoint management. So technically, before actually I'm just inviting Shehan, I'm going to have a bit of the community rules with you all. So the Microsoft Learn is the perfect place to grow your skills, connect with Microsoft experts, and get real support on your learning journey. Whether you join in learning room, ask questions, or follow the latest updates on the Learn Hub, it's all about learning together in a friendly, supportive space, which is designed to help you succeed. Don't miss out. Explore it today and take your next step with confidence. For those one who you already know about the learning rooms, as per recent changes, the learning rooms are now moved to the Microsoft Tech community, and you should be able to follow Microsoft Zero to Hero there too. So a bit of the code of conduct of the community. So the same as other communities, as part of the Microsoft Zero to Hero community, we ask everyone to be friendly and respectful to one another. Listen to different opinions and be kind and patient when you're asking or answering the questions. So without further delay, please welcome Shehan Perera to the stage. And I'm going to add him come up to here on the stage. So welcome, Shehan. Great to have you here today.
Hi, Priya. Thanks for having me. Hi, all. Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Yeah, good to be here.
Awesome. I'm just not losing the time anymore. I'm just passing the stage to you, and you can start your own session. I'll be behind of the stage in case if you have any question or any help needed, just let me know.
Yes, sure. One question, Priya. I think I need to share the screen again. Is that correct?
I'm going to actually bring your slides up. It's over to you. I'm behind of the stage. Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you very much. So hi again. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining the session today. My name is Shehan Perera. I'm a Microsoft MVP in security, specializing in Intune, Microsoft Entra, Identity Access Management, Defend XDR, and everything in between. Currently, I'm working as an architect in Microsoft Unified Endpoints and Identity Space at Bastion Technology Services here in Adelaide, South Australia. So let's begin. A little bit about myself. So I do a blog called emsroute.com, where I write everything about, again, Entra, Intune, Defender, those sort of things, where I'm passionate about technology. So you can find, I'm writing very consistently there as well. So you can find my blog articles there at emsroute.com. Of course, I'm in LinkedIn. And also in YouTube as well. Got a couple of videos in my channel, which I want to resume doing as well. So you can find me on YouTube as well as in X as well. And if you're in Adelaide, come and say hi at the monthly Adelaide IT, Microsoft IT user group, where we talk a lot about those technologies and Microsoft stuff and infrastructure in general. So this is something which I've done a couple of years ago and still updating it to the latest version. It's called intunemaps.com. You can scan the QR code or just go into intunemaps.com. So that's where I segregate the Intune stuff in the Learn documents. Of course, the Learn documents is the best place to learn more about the Microsoft technologies. But you can easily get lost in the Learn pages if you don't know what to navigate to. So my goal in this intunemaps.com mind map sort of a place was just to show everything related to Intune in a like with boxes. So if you want to go, for an example, how to plan for an Intune migration or Intune implementation, you can go into this website and just find out that's a specific feature. And then you can, once you direct to the Microsoft Learn documents, you can basically navigate from there. So this is basically good for anyone who's starting with Microsoft Intune, or anyone who's a expert in Intune who wants to know more about the features and technology. So that's the intunemaps.com. So I got the version 3 up and running right now. And there. So let's jump into the session today. So, hybrid working is trending. And whenever we're looking for a new role, for an example, we're always looking for that hybrid tag, because we want that mobility, that portability when working, rather than just working in an office from 9 to 5. And also, that work needs to be done securely without losing the productivity as well. And also, let's say, for an example, if we don't have any AD dependencies for the devices, how good that will be. And also, no more legacy GPOs from an IT perspective when managing the devices, right? So for that, of course, we know we need to have line of sight access and things like that. What if it's not there anymore? And also, the device preparation methods are changing, and people are moving from standard imaging SOE to autopilot, those sort of technologies. So you don't need to worry about where the device is. As long as the device is with the end user, with the internet connectivity, you can just set up your policies and your configuration profiles, security in one place, and just with the cloud powered with the cloud technology, that will be downloaded and that will be set up in the devices then and there. And also, new ways of working along with modern security. So you can't forget security in any of these steps. You need to have that security aligned with your strategy. So those sort of things. Let there be cloud native endpoints. Right. So that's my topic today. I want to discuss about the cloud native endpoints and building up a strategy of to move from your on-premises or hybrid environment to that cloud native sort of endpoint, how to start that journey in a way. So these are the very high-level things that I'm discussing today. The story so far with hybrid joint devices and device management, and also why hybrid matters. And also architecting a cloud-native strategy, that's very important, because there are so many things that you can do with Intune, Entra, those sort of things, plus security. But strategizing it to steps is very important, because it's not a big bang approach. It's a very staged and a very slow approach. And also building blocks of cloud native endpoints. What are the building blocks and how they are connecting to the major components, something like device hardening with security, authentication, and things like that. There can be showstoppers as well in that journey, in that project planning. So you need to understand showstoppers and how to get ready for those stuff. At the end, some key takeaways from the whole session, what I want to let everyone know. So, stories so far with the Entra hybrid joint, right? So, I've seen a lot of organizations, they are testing cloud features mainly with Intune, or maybe condition access policies that are coming up with hybrid. The device needs to be hybrid interjoined in order to access a resource and things like that. So that, keeping that aside, you have your domain joined devices right now, GPOs applied. So that's the story so far. And you may have some conditional access policies, if not a lot of conditional access policies, to access the resources when you want to. There can be some device-specific conditional access policies as well. Authentication is mainly via the AD, so Kerberos authentication is used whenever device log on and then accessing the resources like maybe a printer or a shared drive, RDP, and things like that. And also, you always have the line of sight access to the domain controllers. You need to have that because whenever there's a new GPO or GPO needs to be replicated or be used on the end device, you need to have that connectivity line of sight access. It can be a VPN or the device should be in the corporate network. On-premises file shares are there, so that's pretty much the story so far. As I mentioned earlier, intra-hybrid joined is there. So that's that's creating the cloud identity, the device identity in Entra. You may have Microsoft Intune or SCCM or both in the co-managed. So if you are using SCCM at the moment, you might have all the workloads running in SCCM apps, your profiles, Windows updates, and everything. Or maybe you are in Intune. Maybe a different device set, a separate device set is managing via Intune. Or you are in that co-managed state where you want to use both of those technologies just to understand how Intune works, and then you are maybe in a slow in a migration journey into full Intune. So I'm going to discuss touch base on those that scenario as well. So with the co-managed, maybe you are still SOing or imaging the devices. You are maybe testing autopilot, for an example. Windows patching is there, so Windows Update for Business or Windows Auto Patch. Maybe you are testing that or using that. Compliance policies by using the conditional access policies now that the devices are intra-hybrid joined. Your apps may be sitting in a CCM and you are pushing it via the CCM, the CCM agent. You may have your endpoint security maybe in GPOs or maybe connected to CCM or coming out from Defender itself or Intune. So there are different ways that you can push the endpoint security policies and device configuration policies as well. There can be a set of device configuration policies coming up from CCM or config manager, and a set of settings coming or policies coming from Intune. So that's the co-managed. So you can understand maybe you are in that situation right now. So that's pretty much setting the scene for this cloud intra device management situation. So we need to understand why hybrid matters. So it's basically you can't. So let's say, for an example, if you want to use Intune, and if you're on premises today, there should be a way to get that to get into that stage. So hybrid would be a best case scenario, because you can, as I mentioned earlier, best of both worlds, SCCM or GPO and Intune as at the same time. So that's the immediate opportunity for you to get into Entra, create that device identity in Entra, and start using those Intune related policies and settings. So hybrid devices, you need to have those hybrid devices for that. Compliance policies. So as soon as you have devices in Intune, you can start using the cloud-based or Intune-based compliance policies that can go with the conditional access policies as well. So let's say, I'm going to touch base on this one as well. Say that you have, if the device is compliant, then provide access to this resource or something like that. So yes, SCCM can have the compliance policies right now, but I would say there can be more features coming up that can be connected to more security features when you have compliance policies in Intune. Also, Entra SSO can be introduced as well. You may have your applications registered in Entra, but to give that seamless access, seamless connectivity to those applications for the users, you can start using the Entra single sign-on, or what we call the seamless single sign-on. And in that way, there is a primary refresh token and access token that's basically coming down to the machine, to the device. And with that, you can use that to access the applications. That can be used for MFA as well. So that's a good opportunity, and why another reason to have hybrid. As I mentioned, best of both worlds, SCCM, GPO, and Intune for device management. Windows Auto Patch can be tested as well. So you can onboard your devices into Windows Auto Patch. And also, let's say, if you are using WSAS at the moment, but with SCCM or a third party, you can get a set of devices to start using Auto Patch or Windows Update for Business with Microsoft Intune. So Defender policies can be pushed straight from Intune or via Defender for endpoint security config management. This is a bit of a loose sort of a statement, because you can onboard the devices today without Entra, without it being Entra hybrid join. It will create a synthetic registration in Entra today. So that's to easily push the policies, or quickly push the policies rather than wait for hybrid. But that device identity can't be used for conditional access policies with Entra. So yes, you can push your security policies, but not for anything else. So, but if your device is in Entra hybrid joined, then you can use Intune to push the policies as well. Also, at the same time, use them for conditional access policies as well. And also, this is a good time to create your Intune policies, test them with the Entra hybrid join devices. And you don't need to delete them, because whenever you start your journey or start testing your cloud native devices, you can reuse those policies, because you know the effect of those policies. You don't need to recreate those policies. Just need to target a different device group, for an example, and then start resume using the same set of policies as well. So I can see why hybrid matters due to these reasons mainly. So, but whenever we talk with the customers or work with the customer projects, they don't want to go beyond the Entra hybrid join. Now they think, my devices are in Entra, my devices can do conditional access policies, compliance, it can push the policies from Intune as well as GPOs as well. So I don't need to go to that Entra join state. It's too much for me, or my devices are not ready, my environment is not ready. So that's a bit of a misconception that most of the customers have today. But I've seen at the same time, a lot of customers are moving to the Entra joined or Intune device management state, the fully cloud native state as well. So we need to understand why it's not the end all be all, right? So that will be the next thing. Why hybrid is not end all be all. So yes, there is some sort of a mobility, but it's not the proper mobility. You need to have your domain join profiles with autopilot, because the device needs to be joined to the local domain as well as Entra with the hybrid. So that needs to happen with the autopilot. If the domain join fails, the whole autopilot process will fail. So for that, you need to have the line of sight access to the DC. It can, so in that way, the process will go smoothly. And to do all the other stuff, say shared drive access, for an example, or maybe a printer, something like that, you still need to have that DC dependency as well. So you need to think about an always on VPN, for an example, when you're doing the autopilot. So that adds more administrative overhead for your hybrid deployments, and let's say maybe a delay in introducing Windows Autopilot, because that has a lot of complications like that. And also it can be AD dependent, as well as, again, more administrative overhead as well, because most of the time you may have seen there is this specific OU which is synchronizing with Entra, but not all the device OUs. So if someone takes out the device, let's say one compute object from the OU and put it to a different OU, the synchronization will drop, and that device can get deleted in Entra. And with that, even if you add the device back into that OU, the link will not be recreated. So that will basically be a result to fail your compliance policies, your conditional access policy, and things like that. and someone has to go and clean the device in Entra, run the commands in the domain in the endpoint on the Windows device, and then recreate that connectivity to be able to access and run through the conditional access policies. So that's obviously an administrative task. Imagine that you have, let's say, 500,000 devices, for example, or maybe more than that. And if you see 1,000 devices with the same issue, it will take ages to get that update and up and running. And also, yes, it's best of both worlds, but it can go either way, because managing policies in two different places can end up with policy errors and policy conflicts as well. If you don't manage your policies well in these two different locations, chances are you might have the same policy in two different places, and then different values as well, and the device usually get the GPOs if you don't have the correct policy in the correct way, and that can end up with errors, and more troubleshooting needs to be done to rectify those issues. And also, Entra Cloud Sync is now available. Some customers are moving to Entra Cloud Sync. So if you are, and also Entra Cloud Sync doesn't support Entra Hybrid Join at the moment. If you are in the Entra Connect Sync tool, and if you are planning on moving to Entra Cloud Sync, you can't do that because there's a blocker with the devices. So you need to understand what would be a good way to move your devices into cloud before you do this move. So it can be another dependency. So that's basically why this is not the end all be all. You need to think ahead, think beyond this line, because of course Microsoft doesn't say Entra Hybrid Joined. Once you are in Entra Hybrid Joined, you can just forget everything. It's just a temporary sort of a place where you test everything, and then you resume your journey to cloud in the proper way. So we have to discuss about the blockers of cloud native endpoints. Sorry, the building blocks of cloud native endpoints. Yeah, so as you can see, Windows 11, the modern OS, Windows 10 is going end of life very soon. So everyone is moving to Windows 11. So Windows 11 should be the recommended OS for this. And also Microsoft Entra for identity and access management for users and for devices, device identity as well. And of course, Microsoft Intune for the modern device management component. And there are a lot of other components that connects to these lines, as I said, policies, configurations, other technologies as well. So they are all part of these building blocks. So, pardon me. So building the cloud native strategy is very important, because you may have the right license, you may have the skills, but if you don't build your strategy properly, the project might fail, because you need to understand your end goal, maybe when you can achieve it, maybe a rough date or something like that, and also things that you need to do accordingly to get to that point, because you are mainly moving the devices source of truth from on-premises to cloud, device management, and also identity as well. So in a very high level, I want to deep dive into this one, but in a very high level, these are the things what I want to discuss. So discovery and discussions, that should be the step one. That's where you understand where you are sitting today. And architecting and change management. Change management is very important as well, because depending on your size of the organization, size of the number of devices, change management is very important. Architecting that change and also architecting the building blocks accordingly is very important. There are a lot of parallel tasks that need to plan and also need to configure as well. And also, what's your device move? This can be a bit crucial as well. Of course, this is not a big bang approach. I will say that word a couple of times during this session. This is a very slow approach, very phased sort of an approach, but yeah, it's definitely not a big bang approach. So you need to understand what's your device move strategy for the cloud native endpoints going forward. So step one, discovery and discussions. So this is where you discover your current environment. So your Active Directory, your domain controllers, what sort of a licensing tier that you are in at the moment. Do you need to upgrade that to a high level? Maybe if you are in business premium, or do you want to go into E3 or from E3 to E5 or something like that? And your devices inventory. So that's very important as well. So that's where you are finding out your current environments, and maybe start documenting those things as well. Management buy-in, very crucial, very important, because whenever you talk to your management something about something like this, most of the time their question is, if it's not broken, why changing? We got everything in place right now, why do you want to change it? So you have to build your case, very to make sure that you address all those things to the management and get their buy-in to go forward with this project. You need to understand your procurement, your device replacement life cycles as well. It can be 3 years, 5 years, or maybe more than that or less than that. So you need to understand those sort of cycles. If you don't have one, how to formalize a device replacement strategy as well. And there can be devices, machines sitting in the cupboards for a long time. What's their status? Can that be recovered? So can that be used, upgraded OS or whatever? Or do you need to ditch them out, buy new devices and things like that? So what's the procurement process at the moment for those stuff? And what sort of agreements that you have with the resellers, vendors for those devices? And what's the device or devices that you are planning to purchase going forward with this cloud native strategy? So those are things that you need to understand, discuss, get the sign off from the management, and then you move forward. So step 2 is basically architecting and change management. So documenting the new config changes. So you don't need to do any changes right now, but you need to understand what sort of things that will be introduced in parallel to the current setup. What will be changed? So you need to, if you have, for example, an architecture review board, so you need to talk with them, get their buy-in for this one. You need to make sure the current setup is ready to go, ready to be configured when it's time. And also, you need to understand to basically to architect the cloud native endpoint environment as well. So how the connectivity looks like in the future, and do you still need to go with a VPN, for an example, to connect back to the organization if you want to? And any other technology like Microsoft Global Secure Access can be introduced. So those sort of things that needs to be identified, understood, and maybe documented as well. Understanding the stakeholders, again, crucial and very important. I talked about the management, the CXO level. There can be an architecture team in your organization, of course, service desk, infrastructure, change management, and change champions. They all are very important for this process. So because everything will change sometime soon, how you log in, for example, or how you are pushing the policies in the future and things like that. So you need to get that started right now. Identifying your change champions is very important as well, and also change management, very important, because they are the people who are talking to those leaders, change champions, doing the communications in the right way at the right time to make sure everything is going smoothly. So understanding your stakeholders is very important as well. So the third step is parallel tasks planning. There can be a lot of than this depending on your environment. So I've listed down a number of important ones. So I'll go through one by one very quickly. As I mentioned, SCCM, if you're in the co-managed, or if you want to start Intune, using Intune, how do you do that, right? So co-manage to full Intune migration for the current devices. So there are workloads sitting in the CCM at the moment, so you need to plan those workloads to be moved to Intune. Authentication, so password to passwordless, a good time to move your device authentication from password to passwordless, Windows Hello for Business. So I'm going to touch base on that one. Auto patch, so Windows Auto Patch or Windows Update for Business, that basically looking after your OS, your drivers from the manufacturer itself, and Microsoft applications as well. Windows Autopilot for the new imaging can be the new SOE, for an example. How do you want to add that in this parallel tasks planning? Cloud PKI, of course, it involves a different license. You need to have an add-on for Cloud PKI in Intune, or you need to have the Intune suite. But if you want Intune to issue your certificates going forward, or you need to test that, you need to have Cloud PKI. So you need to start working on that one as well, planning if required. Also, Intune device config policies, very important as well. So what sort of policies that you're going to have, what are the device groups, or what are the departments, if you don't know the devices at this stage. And also, are they actually device policies or user policies and things like that? Apps via Intune, so application installation via Intune connected to the CCM stuff. I'm going to touch base on that in a bit as well. Your conditional access policies, your device compliance policies, now that the devices are fully Intune managed or Entra joined, fully Entra joined, not hybrid daily joined. GPO migration and remodeling in Intune, so that's very important as well. Cloud Kerberos Trust, there you might still have requirement to access shared drives. Your device is not AD joined, so how do you access? So that's a trust model that's very easily can be set up, secure, and very popular. So I'm going to discuss about that one as well in a sec. Your device hardening, your baseline policies, endpoint security, and everything that needs to go, that needs to be planned properly. Of course, as I mentioned, any other features like private apps access by using the global secure access. So it can be its own mini project as well, but you can just at least start planning if you want, if you have that requirement, and etc., depending on your organization's requirement and size. So device move, once you have everything in, so device move strategy is very important as well. So that's where you introduce or your roll out your devices. That's where the actual the cloud native endpoints start the journey in your organization. So I've seen these two popular ones, which is the current Entra hybrid joint devices. So what you can do is, it doesn't have to be all the devices at once. You can't do that as well. As I mentioned, if you got a large device fleet, it can be maybe when you are reimaging the device, then you are basically doing Entra as Entra joint, as well as you use Autopilot for that with the Intune, and it can be added into your rebuilding scenarios. Or maybe if you are planning to do a department by department, for an example, depending on the management buy-in, you can say, all right, so we're going to do 10 devices today or 100 devices today, and you build your scenario according to that. So they are the current devices that are hybrid AD joined at the moment. And also the new devices. So once everything is there, everything is sorted out, any new device coming in from this point onwards, they will be cloud native devices. They'll no longer connected to the on-premises AD. So you use Windows Autopilot and it will be Entra joined and going forward with the cloud native endpoint journey. So you need to identify these strategies. Obviously, you have to test those strategies as well, just to make sure that will go without any blockers once you have all the solution in place. So that's basically so cloud native endpoints. So this is pretty much a bit of a very high level sort of a graph which I came up with. So you have the inception, as I mentioned earlier. So you have your current hybrid endpoint device fleet right now, and you are basically planning a move strategy. You are configuring your cloud native settings, configuration profiles, and everything. You are testing testing cloud native with your current devices or with new devices, and you do the change management. So change management can come at any point from start to end. And you have your pilot set of cloud native endpoints. So this is where you identify any early issues, you go back into the testing mode, or maybe configure new profiles, troubleshooting, and go back and forth to make sure that you have a good set of devices, a perfect set of devices that's basically cloud native. So at some point in the interim stage, so let's tell us as interim stage 1. So you still have your hybrid endpoints. Now that you have done everything at the inception stage and the project planning and the configuration stage, now you have your production cloud native endpoints. So that means any reimaging or any device that's basically getting reimaged, that will be a cloud native endpoint, or any new device coming in, there will be a cloud native endpoint. At some point again, let's say interim stage 2, you can see your hybrid endpoint fleet is getting lower and lower because you're introducing more and more cloud native endpoints now. So this is a good sign. So that means your strategy is working. You are going forward in this journey in the right way. And at some point, you can say you achieve your goal, because now all the devices are in production, which are cloud native endpoints. So that's where you can say, yes, we have achieved our cloud native endpoint goal successfully. So I want to set the scene for the next set of slides, because I'm going to talk about the device management. So the scope for this discussion is config manager or CCM. So if you don't have this, and if you are in Intune, it's very easy because you can easily enroll the devices in Intune, start using Intune. But if you are in config manager or SCCM today, you can still, if you don't have the device enrolled in SCCM, you can still use Intune on that device. But the recommended method is to go with the co-managed, because your fleet is managed by config manager. So it needs to go through the co-managed state for a pilot set of devices, and then you move into the fully Intune state. So that's my next set of slides is all about. So why it is a parallel task? So because you've got a lot of workloads that are basically coming via SCCM, a config manager. And you are testing them today, as well as you are using them today successfully with your devices. So you can't stop config manager and start using Intune. So that's why it's a parallel task as well. So for this one, so you need to understand your current device state. So let's say if it's a CCM, and then you configure your workloads in Intune. So basically, that's the co-managed part. So once the device is co-managed, you can see your devices in Intune, and then you start creating those workloads in Intune as well. So the workloads, I will show what other workloads are in a sec. Once it's done, so you start planning the move. So first you may have a set of devices in a device collection in SCCM, and then so they are the devices that are used in the pilot for the co-managed. But when you are ready, you can say, I have tested, now I want to move from the co-managed pilot to full. So you change your settings around in SCCM. So all the devices now in Intune will be on fully Intune managed. So you test and then you switch fully. So that's basically about the co-managed to fully Intune managed. So this is straightforward as it sounds, but it can have a lot of testing, maybe complexities, and to identify those policies properly. So it takes some time as well. So that's why it's a parallel task. You need to have your config manager running well today. You're parallel testing this in Intune with the co-managed with your set of devices. So these are the workloads that I mentioned. So this is where the co-managed come into the scene. So you have your pilot Intune. So if you are in the co-managed, so then you can say, my set of pilot devices should be managed in both. So you may have your compliance policies set up in config manager, device configuration, client apps, and click to run apps as well for Office. So those can be managed in Intune as well, as long as you don't conflict the policies. So when you are ready, you can move your workloads to Intune, as well as you can say, I don't want a pilot set anymore. This should be for all the devices. So you set your SCCM configuration accordingly for that. So moving apps to Intune is another challenging task in a way. If you have a lot of applications in config manager or in a third-party tool today, because in Intune there are a couple of ways that you can push applications. You can configure those applications in order to push them into the client devices. So I'll go with easy and hard, so it's easy to identify and understand. So there are methods when you are creating the app in Intune. You have the option of selecting the app from the Microsoft Store app. So it's very easy. So you select, there's a catalog, and then you just search for the application name. Chances are there's no application available for that in the store today. Or maybe you need an advanced version of that application, which is not available in the store. But for an example, if you take VLC, for an example, if you type VLC, you can easily add that application. So everything is filled out for you, the installation switches, uninstallation switches, and all the other stuff. The metadata is basically filled out for you from the Microsoft Store app itself, and it's available with your license. If you want to go one step beyond further, you can start using Enterprise App Management, or EAM. So that's an add-on that you have to get separately to the standard Intune Plan 1. Or if you have the Intune Suite today, you can start using this. So again, this is a catalog. When they first started it only had like a handful of applications. Now it has got like a lot of applications. So any EXEs that you wanted to install a couple of years ago, maybe they are now available there. So it's a good way to easily start, again, search the catalog and start installing those applications into the users, a bit advanced than the Store app. Line of business applications. So these are your .msi, MSIX, and MSX app bundle and things like that. So these applications you can't select from a catalog. You have to upload the .msi file. But why it's easy? You don't have to create your dependencies or your identification of the application, uninstallation, installation switches, and things like that. Everything is basically created for you, because these are Microsoft based applications. So, but the only thing is you need to find the application from the internet and then upload it to Intune and then start pushing out to the users. Win32 apps, I would say this is the hardest, because you need to find the right way to do it. So say that you can't find the application, or there's no MSI application for this. Then you need to have that exe file, or basically a folder of application files, where you want to read app as .intune bin file. And then you upload it to Intune. You have to create your installation switches, uninstallation switches. any recognition parts as well, and things like that. So we need to create everything from the scratch for Win32 applications. So that's why it's hard, and it needs to be tested as well, because most of the time it can fail on the device. So you need to understand if any other dependencies are there, what should go first, and things like that. So mapping out Windows 32 apps is kind of hard, challenging, and you have to understand everything before you basically do that. So as I mentioned, app dependencies and installation order comes into the scene as well. So the applications you have today in SCCM or in the third party, so that needs to be moved into Intune in order to Intune to manage that workload and install them by using Intune to the user devices. So you should plan this, you should test this as a parallel task, and this is very important for your cloud endpoint journey as well. Next, I want to discuss a bit about the GPU analytics, which is in Intune. So it's basically helping you to remodel your GPUs in the cloud. So it's a good thing, right? Otherwise, say if you have a policy that has a GPU that has got 100 settings in it, you don't want to go through one by one, recreate those in Intune. And chances are you might not find the same setting as well. So this is why the GPU analytics is available in Intune today. So you can basically backup, go to your GPU, select backup, and you can download the XML file, import it to Intune, and Intune will say if the settings are deprecated, if it can be found, yes, and what's the supportability of the Intune. So you need to identify, and also this is a good opportunity for you to clean up your GPUs as well. There can be a lot of garbage GPUs sitting in, years worth of GPUs. Sometimes they're not using anymore, but no one wants to touch. But this is a good time to evaluate your GPUs, take an inventory, and see what are the most essential ones that needs to go into the cloud in the future when the devices are on fully cloud native. So you import your essential GPUs into GPU analytics in Intune, and you create your Intune config policies. So Intune will help you to create the policies then and there, because it can identify those policies, the similar policies which are sitting in Intune today. And you can, of course, you have to test, and then you keep them as your, your imaged, your whatever, the golden image sort of settings, and then you can apply it to the devices going forward. So as I said earlier, this helps you to move your policy settings into the cloud very easily. So there are some things to expect as well. There can be setting mismatches. So if you can't find the same setting sitting in Intune, chances are there can be a wording issue. I've seen this a couple of times as well. So if you know the keywords, if you start looking from the keywords, you can find the same setting sitting in Intune settings catalog. And also you can look at the CSP mappings as well. So using an OMA URI link. So they are available in the link, they're available in the Learn documentation as well, how to create those stuff. So if the settings catalog can't provide you a setting readily available, you can think about the CSP mappings as well. And also, of course, there can be GPU settings which are deprecated, which are not in use in Intune. So you need to find out if this is not in use in Intune, what would be the way to go? Do we really need it? Or what's the next most secure way to implement this in Intune? So this is more of a screenshot. As you can see on the first screenshot would say the GPU name, live dash client underscore devices dash C. And also this is supportability like a percentage, 77% right now. And if you drill down to this policy, you can see MDM support is available and what's the actual CSP mapping for that available setting today that's coming out from the settings catalog, and things like that. Also, as I mentioned earlier, the MDM, if there's no MDM support, chances are you can find find from the keywords in the settings catalog or from the CSP. Try to use a CSP mapping for that. And also there can be deprecated settings as well. So you need to find out the next best setting for those. Because if that's a security setting, you don't need that setting to left alone. Maybe there's a more secure way by using an Intune to use that. So you need to find that right setting, right balance. So that's about your policy remodeling. So that's very important and a huge parallel task, I would say, because if you are pushing those policies into the devices, they need to be ready to go when your devices are ready to go with the cloud journey. So device authentication. So I discussed at start device authentication in cloud native. Yes, you are today. You are using the Kerberos today by using with the help of your domain controllers, your Active Directory, and whatnot. It has got a password. Say if the device is stolen, and if the person who actually stole your device knows the password for some reason, they can just jump in and steal your data. So it's that easy, and anyone can just brute force the passwords as well. So that's passwordless. So password with a password. But the cloud native supports passwordless methods, more secure methods as well. So that's what I want to talk about, the device authentication in cloud native. Yes, you can still configure your password when logging to the device because your users are still synchronizing from the local AD. The local AD is your domain controls are source of truth for your synchronized users, and it's still synchronizing. They can using that they can continue their work. But if you want to go with a more modern way, you can start introducing something like Windows Hello for Business. It's been there for ages, and also it can be used with the hybrid Entra join as well, but with some limitations, of course, because it's on premises connected. So maybe this is the situation today, but what you want to do is maybe use a PIN. It can be a 4-digit PIN or 6-digit PIN with some complexity in it. Or better yet, you can use Windows Hello for Business face recognition feature or fingerprint feature. So because these factors stays with you, the PIN never leaves the machine, or because it stays in the encrypted hardware module, the TPM, trusted platform module. So that will not leave. Even if someone steals the device, they can't hack into the TPM. So so you can think of something like that. And that PIN, if you're using a different device, you can use a different PIN. It just doesn't have to be the same PIN. So got more, in a way, it's called the phishing resistant authentication, and that can be used in your conditional access policies as well. So that's the modern way of authenticating into devices as well. So I guess that's a good segue to Windows Hello for Business, because Windows Hello for Business is basically a simple, convenient authentication method, supports zero trust model as well. As I mentioned earlier, it uses a PIN biometrics, let's say a fingerprint or a face recognition, and also PIN is tied to your device. It won't leave your device. And also, this plays in the passwordless and the phishing resistant MFA, phishing resistant authentication space, which is basically recommended for today's scenarios. And also, you can configure this with Intune, because if you have done the right change management, right communication, when the user gets the new device, they have to configure their PIN or their Windows Hello for Business, whatever the authentication method that you're providing, to start with. So it's from the get-go. So the security is provided from the get-go. But as I said, there is a change management and user preparation as well, because this predominantly change in the way the user logs into the device. Today they are using the username password, but tomorrow they have to use the PIN. So you need to make sure that's a smooth transfer, and users know what they have to do, what are the steps that they have to follow. So that advising is very important. That change management piece is very important as well. So you can add, as I mentioned, you can add this as a part of the autopilot once the process is done. Yes, you can pretty much get the user to sign in, register for Windows Hello for Business, and go from there. If you are not allowing BYOD in your organization at any point, no personal mobile devices, no personal devices, then you can start using a temporary access pass with Entra. So it can be a one-time code. And then from that point onwards, user is logging to the device by using their Windows Hello for Business authentication, and they don't use a password. Or if you really want to, let's say if you have a BYOD, or if you want to give them another device, a personal device, to access their the corporate resources, you can think about something like a FIDO2 key, right? So it's still phishing resistant. The user uses the password to log in, but the second factor is FIDO2 key in this example. So you are still going aligned with the whole zero trust and new phishing resistant methods by allowing your BYOD. So that's a win-win situation, I would say. And also, users need to complete the MFA before they actually start configuring the Windows authentication. That's basically a bit of a configuration sort of a call out. So that needs to be done as well. So Windows Hello for Business is a good opportunity for you to start, test, and then roll out for your new device fleet. So let's see the high level of this Windows Hello for Business situation. So when the device is Entra ID joined. So this uses Intune autopilot. So during the autopilot configuration, the device will be Entra joined. So at this stage, the Windows Hello for Business enrollment trigger will occur. So for this, of course, Microsoft is recommending Windows, a TPM 2.0, not 1.2 anymore. That encryption should be there, so that's the latest standard. And also, if you are planning to use fingerprint or face recognition, biometrics should support on the device. You can use Intune to push those policies as well. And also, in a given time, you can add this as a additional guardrail if you want to use the password. So when this process happens, when the enrollment trigger happens, so there's a key generation and registration process that happens from the backend. So there'll be a Windows Hello for Business key pair. The private key stays in the device, for example, in the TPM, and the public key is sent to the Entra ID against the user object in Entra ID. And as I mentioned, biometrics should support as well. So the sign-in flow for the users, when the user unlocks the device by using the PIN or with biometrics, the device sends a signed challenge to Entra using that private key. And Entra verifies the signature of the private key against the user and with the public key registered. And if successful, it says the authentication is basically successful at that point, and Entra ID issues the PRT to the device, which basically will work with SSO and everything going forward for that device. So that's how the sign-in flow works for Windows Hello for Business every time when the users try to log in for the authentication for the device. So I briefly talked about the phishing resistant part, MFA. So this is how you actually can encompass your authentication now that you have Windows Hello for Business with conditional access policies. So there's something called authentication strength under conditional access policies in Entra. That's where you introduce new strengths into conditional access policies, and you can use them with the grant factor. So as you can see here, I have created a custom strength called Windows Hello for Business. So the authentication methods for this Windows Hello for Business with the platform credentials. Now that I have that policy in place, that authentication strength in place, I can add that into the conditional access policy, not the standard require MFA authentication, but I go one step below and say I require authentication strength, and I just select my strength which I just created. So you can use this one specifically if someone wants to access a different resource, but not the standard 365 resources, for an example, maybe. Or if someone wants to elevate their permissions or their RBAC into an administrator, a different RBAC role, you can use this one. Yes, they have to log into the device first. They have to log into the Entra portal first. But if you want to elevate, it's a different strength. So that means even if someone hacks in, get to know their username and bypass the MFA, they can't elevate the RBAC because it's a different strength. It basically uses Windows Hello for Business in this example to elevate that access. So it can be more secure and phishing resistant. So you can think about those sort of things when you're modeling your conditional access policies, now that you have a new way of authenticating into resources and to devices. So I talked about the cloud Kerberos trust very briefly earlier. So I want to discuss about this one as well. So there can be challenges now that the devices are no longer AD joined, but devices still need to be connected, still need to access your shared drives, for an example, or maybe Azure files. So how do you do that? Because the device doesn't know anything about the AD anymore, but you need a way to do that, right? So that's where the cloud Kerberos trust comes into the scene. So it's a trust model that Windows Hello for Business uses. Before Cloud Kerberos Trust, Microsoft introduced the hybrid key trust as well as the hybrid certificate trust as well. So they are all good implementations, but of course the challenge is you need to have your PKI infrastructure as well as managing certificates, complex environment setup, and also needs to be done right. Otherwise, that trust will not be made when someone wants to access something. So you can use to access your local shares and file shares. So Entra Kerberos trust model is a very simple deployment. And if you don't have on-premises SSO, it's just a matter of downloading the PowerShell from Microsoft, PowerShell script from Microsoft, and then add your variables and just run against the domain controllers. So you need to understand how many domains that you have and things like that, and who needs access to this feature. So it basically uses the property to like a key. It does a key exchange during this process. So I'll go through the process as well. So as I mentioned earlier, some challenges in the previous methods, the certificate management and the complex PKI deployments can be a challenge. This has got some limitations in the authentication flows. So if you check the actual Microsoft documentation, you will see RDP is not supported today. And for that, of course, you need to think about something else. So Entra private apps can be a good option if you are going with GSA. But if you want to access a file share, this would be the way to go. And also you can create your policies like a credential guard policy by using Intune to protect your TGTs as well, because the TGT is moving from here to there. So to protect those, what's in the machine, what's in the endpoint, you can start using a policy like a credential guard as well. So as I said, Entra private apps can be an alternative for some of the limitations that you have in Entra Cloud Kerberos Trust today. And lastly, I have just shown the setting. This is from the settings catalog in Intune. So you basically say under Windows Hello for Business, use Cloud Trust for on-prem authentication. It's that simple. When you enable that, it starts basically the device starts using this feature. So at a very high level, this is what happens. Now that you have your cloud native endpoint, Entra joined, Intune managed, and say that you are in the corporate network or you have a VPN connected to your corporate network. You are trying to access the shared drive. It basically will not work. Most probably it will give you the prompt saying, if it's in the same network, it tries to do the Windows Hello for Business. Now it's the primary, but it can't go through. Probably it will give you an error. But the device now will try to contact, now because the user is logged into the device, it tries to contact the Entra Kerberos component in Entra and try to identify what's this all about. So because, as I mentioned, the users are still synchronizing from the local AD, the local AD data, some stuff you can see them in the users properties in Entra. So I just added this user Joe blogs at domain.local. So that's what you call the domain hint. So that's coming out from the local on-premises AD. So that domain hint, with that domain hint, Entra now sends a partial TGT back to the device saying, this is the domain that the user is basically coming from. So that's a partial TGT where you can't use to do a full authentication. And this has got the SID of the user and some details, not the full TGT that we want. So now the device has got this partial TGT. Device then uses the DC locator service to find out the actual domain controller for this that supports the Entra Kerberos trust. So this all happens because the device in the same network, it needs to have the line of sight access to domain controllers, but device doesn't need to be joined to the domain controller. So with the DC locator service, it finds out what the domain controller is, which is domain.local. And now it does the key exchange. When you configure Cloud Kerberos Trust, it will create a read-only domain controller in your environment, in your on-premises. That's to basically issue the full TGT. Now that everything is in place, now the device knows your domain controller. Now it sends the partial TGT in order to get to exchange with the full TGT. So that's what I mentioned in the step 5. Now the device has got the full TGT. If you run like the command klist in CMD or in PowerShell, you can see those tickets that's basically stored in your device. By using that full TGT, ticket granting ticket, it now tries to access the shared drive, and you can access that. So that's the beauty of Cloud Kerberos Trust. It's simple to set up, very easy process, easy to understand process. And then, as I mentioned, there are some gotchas with the limitations, so you need to look out for. But basically, you can start using this feature for your requirements as well. So I've written in my blog, I've written like the same steps, explaining the same steps. I got like a good reach for this blog as well up to today. So it's basically lines out, what things to be done, what are the limitations, and how to get rid of the previous sort of trust modules if you have. It's like a step-by-step sort of a guide to use Cloud Kerberos Trust. So I think that finishes the authentication. So I want to touch base on the device hardening as well, which is very crucial, very important, because your devices will be in the cloud going forward. There are no GPOs, but how do you manage those devices securely? So that's where the hardening part comes into the scene. So this item or this component should be in that solution that you are creating as a parallel task, which will be going into the devices. So as you may already know, endpoint security in Intune, and it has got a lot of good baselines, which are always changing depending on the version of the Windows. So I think at the moment, Windows, the version 24H2 is there, but most probably 25H2 will come soon as well, once it's available for the Windows 11 devices. So I marked two baselines, which is the Windows 10, that's the operating system, and Microsoft 365 apps. So there are a lot of things that you need to test before implementing this stuff. But right off the bat, if you talk about the security baseline for Windows 10 and above, it talks pretty much talks all the locations in Windows OS that needs to be secured. There are lots of settings that you need to set. What the baseline does is baseline provides you the recommended settings that needs to go, and you can customize if you want to. So that's the best thing that I've seen in the security policies, because if you don't know, for an example, about data protection, you don't need to think. It's just right there. You just need to test and allow it for your devices. And yeah, so that's the baselines, right? So that needs to be, keep on telling this tested, because there can be surprises if you enable your devices right away. So you need to test and then identify what needs to be done before you actually implement this to the other devices. And you will see a lot of similar settings, similar policies everywhere. So I can give you two examples here, or maybe three. Firewall, labs, defender settings, those are available in separate settings as well. So you can set up your firewall settings separately. You can set up your labs separately. You can set up your defender policy separately. So if you're setting up those, make sure that you don't conflict with your baseline policy, or take them out from the baseline and then configure them independently. So in that way, you don't do any policy mismatches or policy conflicts. So some things to call out when you are configuring those stuff. And also, device hardening will not stop there. BitLocker encryption is very important, because you need to encrypt your drives. How do you want to encrypt your drives? So they're all available in the BitLocker encryption, and that basically correlates with your compliance policies as well. Windows Labs, as I mentioned earlier, there have been a lot of enhancements in the Windows Labs space now that everything is in Intune. So you have to think about those stuff as well going forward for your devices. Conditional access policies are very important. How do you want to manage your devices accessibility with the conditional access policies? It can be with the compliance, or it can be with the device filters and stuff like that. Device restriction policies are very important. Today, you got a device restriction policy template that you can just easily getting from Intune and change as you want. But there can be other settings that you want to push as well. So those sort of settings, templates, custom settings, you need to plan. You need to create your policies. And I need to say, name your policies in the right way. You need to have a proper naming convention as well for anything that you do in Intune, as an example. So that will help you to do a better management in Intune. There can be other edge-specific browser, basically edge browser profile settings as well, that you can find in settings catalog, which may be not available in the your baseline policies. So you have to think about those stuff as well. Of course, if you're using Defender and if the devices are onboarded to Defender, think about the attack surface reduction rules. They will act proactively before when it identifies a threat in your devices. So you need to understand those things. Of course, it can disrupt user productivity, so you need to plan for ASR rules properly as well. Some device hardening gotchas, as I mentioned, always test your policies. They can be surprises. They can be, some. If you're managing a large fleet, there can be small pockets in your organization where still uses older or legacy protocols. Let's say for file access, SMB1, for example. So you need to identify those. If it stops today, what's the effect? What's the impact to the users? So you need to plan those out first. And then maybe you can, exclude those users for now, exclude for these devices in a different policy, and put different set of restrictions that captures any threats. Settings tattooing can be an issue. So if you want to roll back, if you want to revert something back, you need to make sure that you set it into a not configured state, for example, because if you just remove the policy from the device, the policy setting can stay in the device. So so you have to think about those things as well. Always, if you're removing a policy, check those stuff, check the settings in a device to see if that has been reverted or not. Again, same thing. Similar settings can be found in different places, so that leads to errors and policy conflicts. So you need to see which way that you want to, what's the best way according to your strategy to push those and create those policies. So I talked about the conditional access policies. So this is where you set up your device-based conditional access policies. So it's basically, you have to set up, you have to use device filters for this one. So there's a filter that you can use, the trust type. There are 3 trust types at the moment: Entra joined, hybrid joined, and Entra registered, which is basically the BYOD type. You can say if the device is basically to the trust type is equals to hybrid joined, Entra joined, do this or don't do this, something like that. So, and you can exclude or include that accordingly, according to your conditional access policy. Or the compliance comes into the scene like this: if the device is compliant, yes or no, then don't provide access to this resource. So that compliance flag is coming from Entra, and how it's coming from Entra is basically coming from the Intune, because Intune is the mobile device management solution, and it talks to Intune compliance policies to understand if the device is compliant or not. And that signal can be used here in the conditional access policy. So, and also you can think about something like this, the token protection for sign-in sessions. So in that way, even if someone bypasses or someone basically get that token somehow and try to replay in their device and try to sign in, maybe it can be a phishing attack. Started with the phishing attack, and then they get the initial access, and then if the token is in the wrong hands, they can't replay the token and jump into the session, because now you have this option called the required token protection for the sign-in sessions. It's still in preview, but you can start testing that. So in that way, that token session for that conditional access policy or that authentication session will stay in the device. It's basically device bound. So you basically, anyone can't replay that token. So some things to think about when you're hardening a device. So these are basically, as I mentioned, compliance-based and device join-based conditional access policies. So now we come to the Windows Auto Patch or Windows Update for Business. So as I mentioned, you may have your current setup with Config Manager today, Windows Update for Business running, or maybe you are using a third party to update your Windows fleet. So with Intune, once you onboard your tenant into Windows Auto Patch will support Microsoft Feature updates, quality updates. That's basically your Patch Tuesday security updates and everything, drive updates, and also Microsoft products as well. So Microsoft products will include Microsoft 365 apps, Edge browser updates, as well as Microsoft Teams as well. And also I mentioned hot patching. It can be used with Intune if your devices have got the correct configuration. So that means you can patch your devices without even rebooting the device. So basically that's hot patching. So that's available with Intune today. So more modern ways to move your devices with updates and everything. So what this does is basically, even if you use Windows Update for Business or Auto Patch, it goes from the standard approving updates and getting them to install framework to the ring framework, where you create your rings accordingly. So I've just given an example here. So you have your test ring, maybe your IT team, your pilot ring, maybe your champions from different departments. They use different applications, and something like that. And maybe you have your production ring 1, 2, 3, maybe more than that. Or maybe you just have test and the broad ring, where you just test and then just push it to all the devices, depending on your organization. So these rings would have different gaps in between, where you can easily stop and uninstall the updates if you want to. So that's the beauty of this the modern way of patching the devices. And everything is just right there in Intune. If it's auto patch, the policies will be created for you, will be managed, all the groups will be created for you. And if it's Windows Update for Business, you just have to create your groups and rings and target your device groups accordingly. So I want to talk about the Windows Auto Patch approach here. So there's a way that you need to onboard your tenant into Windows Auto Patch, where that will create all your policies, all your groups, and everything for you. Then basically, so it's basically the device needs to be registered. So if the device is in the Intune Auto Patch eligible state, so you can just basically register those devices by adding it to the group. So from that point onwards, everything is just for you. And the good thing is it has got a readiness report saying if you register 100 devices today, you have your readiness report saying, yes, these devices are ready to go with auto patch. And it checks for all the prerequisites and everything as well. And also, and after that, auto patch will take over the Windows patching. You don't need to worry about anything because it's Microsoft managed. There's a specific team that manages the Windows Auto Patch. It gives you constant updates about the maintenance cycles or the patching cycles, what is going on right now, if there are any errors, what needs to be done. And if you have any issues, you can directly contact the Microsoft team as well. Like open a ticket and they will be in contact with you. So some benefits. So with the auto patch or with Windows Update for Business feature with Intune, rollback is easy because you have considerable number of days between the rings. And it supports, the SME, the subject matter experts are there. It's not just a support call to Microsoft. So it's basically auto patch SMEs are there to support you whenever whenever you have issues with patching. So regular notifications about updates, any advisories and things like that, new patch updates, details, and also you can see the health in the dashboard as well, right, with Intune. So, and also, if you want to go one step further, you can adopt log analytics workbooks that actually separate to Intune and Entra, because that sits in Azure. And that comes with a different charge, with different cost as well. So you can create your workbooks. I think I saw the same in Microsoft Learn documents as well. There's a workbook that you can adopt in your environment that will show more graphs and everything, like more reporting with your Windows updates. So major updates like Windows 10 to 11 can be done very conveniently because you create your feature updates and then you target your devices accordingly. So here I have just added a screenshot of how Windows Auto Patch looks like. So there's only 2 groups here, 2 rings. So according to that, you have your Entra groups created, as well as you have your policies, your update policies created in Intune device configuration for Edge, for Teams, and for 365 apps. So setting up
maybe quickly, I'll just mention something. If you can wrap it up in 5 minutes, that would be great. Which we can close the session. Thanks for that.
Sure. No worries for you. I'll quickly run through this one as well. So setting up RBAC, you need to have your RBAC set up properly, because you are accessing a large fleet. For an example, you need to make sure you have your Entra admin units if you want to. If you have Entra RBAC for Intune administrator and things like that, and also what specific access that you need to provide into different Intune administrators, help desk and whatnot. So you need to understand your RBAC situation as well. I just run through this. I'm not going to discuss in depth. So device compliance, relying on legacy auth apps, good time to move those applications. If you have printing, try to move to universal print or something like that. Radius is not supported at the moment with that authentication, so you need to find out a method for that one as well, or maybe use Cloud PKI. And also device mapping, Intune will support that. So when you have everything, so that's just a matter of creating the new SOE. So that's the Windows Autopilot, right? So it's basically you have your autopilot and autopilot profile, and we discuss everything, your applications, your policies, profiles, everything. Now it's just a matter of pushing those policies into that solution called Windows Autopilot, and then you have your new device, new cloud endpoint device. And you can target from the security policies as well, from security groups as well. So it's very easy to understand. User doesn't need to be in the office. Once the IT admin configured the settings, it's just a matter of getting the devices into Intune, and wherever the user may be, it can be easily configured and it can be ready to go from that point onwards. So I mentioned some key benefits with Windows Autopilot. Maybe you already know zero touch provisioning, zero trust from the get-go, seamless user experience. So I'm not going to discuss about testing again, because I talked about testing a couple of times. So why you need testing in your process to be smooth and successful. So showstoppers, well, change management needs to be done properly, management buy-in. So everything that I discussed in the strategy, you need to do that in the correct way. So then you can easily skip these showstoppers as well. So before I wrap up, some key takeaways. There's no big bang approach for this one. It's very slow, but you need to going according to your strategy. There are lots of parallel tasks, as I mentioned, need to discuss and plan, test, configure. Understand the limitations, what you need to do if that's a showstopper. And also, it's a good chance to move your move authentication for any old apps to new modern ways. And also testing is very important from the get-go. Then you know what the impact, any errors, and early troubleshooting. Change champions, use cases, important. Different departments would have different requirements. And maybe deployment rings for testing and also deployment your devices as well. And also, if you don't have a replacement strategy for the devices, formalizing one is important, because more and more new devices may come in the future, which will go on cloud native. So my last slide. So I've written the same in my blog as well. It keep on coming up. So I just have 5 articles right now. So what I just mentioned is pretty much very detailed here in the Cloud Native Endpoints section in my blog. So you can read that one as well. And with that, thank you very much. And I hope you learned something new today. And if you are in this journey, I wish you all the best. And if you're thinking about it, yes, I believe this conversation really helped in your thinking and strategize your move. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Shehan. I think it was a great session, I believe, and I'm totally sure everyone just learned a lot of things to digest, actually,
Yes.
as part of these sessions. I think you touched a lot of very important, topics, including the identity, user identities and devices, which is pretty much very important items of the Zero Trust strategy, which is most of the organizations, if they go that path of the Zero Trust strategy, they need to understand fully how take advantage of the Microsoft Entra as an identity and access management platform or service, and also the Intune for their mobile device management as a service to actually have that initial phases of the Zero Trust strategy. I would like actually thank you on behalf of everyone here, and I hope everyone have a great day and great night wherever you are in this world. And we love actually to have you always here contributing, following us on YouTube and LinkedIn and everywhere. So, and if you had any questions, detailed questions, you can reach out directly to Shehan about this session and about this topic. And thank you again. Have a great day.